Hey everyone, it's been a few weeks, but back with another tutorial. Have been busy, so unfortunately have not had the time to do these, but now getting back into it. So I just wanted to give a quick tip today on basslines. So I know I actually probably get asked a lot about bass, and I just wanted to show you a few tips and tricks. Won't necessarily go into a bit of an in-depth one at the moment, but just wanted to talk about a little bit of the bus processing on your bass buses and what you can do to really start bringing out your mid basses or your bass lines in general. This is, of course, more of a trance tutorial. It's not as hard as you think to give yourself an extra little bit of, I guess, punch or clarity in your bass lines with a few effective plugins. So this one will really go more into plugins and which ones we think are really, really good now and using the bass line. So I've got a track here. I'll just basically play the mid bass. What I'll do is I'll just play it in its entirety first. And then from there, we'll just turn off all the processing on the bus and then we'll show you what it sounds like without it and then what we kind of did to beef up the mid bass once we had it. So if you're looking at ways to beef up your mid bass and you don't really know what to do, then this is for you. So let's play it first. Yeah, so I'll play that with the kick and bass. Now, just to give you an idea on what that sounds like in the entire track, I'll just play the whole track. Okay, so the reason I wanted to play the whole track as well is because you want to see that you don't need to overdo the bass line and it's not going to be the most loudest thing, but in isolation it does sound nice and thick. So what I'll do is I will first go ahead and turn everything off. And then we can go ahead and play the bass line now. So you're instantly going to notice how it kind of sounds, I guess, weaker. But what I'm actually going to do here is one of the things I want to talk to you about is we want to talk about this peak level here on your mid bass bus. So in this particular case, the low mids are on a separate, but it's just separated from this mid bass bus, and I'll get into that why, and that's another good trick. But we've sort of processed that separately. But what you want to talk about here is, a lot of the time you probably just think, oh, why can't you just turn the volume up if it sounds weak? Well, it's not just about the volume in this case. It's about bringing out the harmonics across the frequency bands. And also, when you bring the harmonics up of the right areas, you're going to not see too much peak come out here, and you're still going to get quite a thick sound. So this is at a 12.6 peak. So if I play this, I'm just going to reset that. So we'll see that it's about a 12.2 peak at the moment. Now, that's all good and well. Now, if I turn this all on, now notice our peak, it's about 8.8. 8.7 as 8.8 as the maximum peak. So yes, the peak has increased, So, but it hasn't increased that much to then warrant, let's say, if I turn this off again. Now that's with the LFO tool on, 13.8 peak. If I bring this up, okay, so if you noticed, I've now brought up the mid bass to around a higher peak level than what it was with the processing on, but it still sounds weak. So we've increased the volume, but we've actually not emphasized the right harmonics, and we've not really brought out that thickness in the bass that we really want to come through. So it's not just about volume, it's about making sure the right harmonics come out. And yes, the volume can increase. That's not a problem. Sometimes I see people saying, oh, process it and make sure it's the same volume. Yes, that's fine. But you can use boosts within your plugins, and they're there for a reason. So, and particularly in the saturator. So there's no hard and fast rules with producing. It's just whatever works for you. But in this case, I just wanted to show you it's not just about peak volume. It's about bringing out harmonics. So I'll just go ahead and reset this again. And now we'll go through the processing around what we actually used, and I'll go through each one of them one by one. Now, the first thing in the chain you want to put, and there is an importance in the order that you're actually going to be doing this in. You want to use your saturator at the start. Now, you can use the Ableton saturator. It is actually very good. We like to use one called the Black Box by Brainworks. Very, very good at bringing out the low-end harmonics. And I would say it's very good for you to use a saturator. Now, I'm not going to go into the settings and why we did what, but I would say definitely use a saturator and learn the saturators that you're going to be using. So lots of them, each of them have slightly different ways to use them, but a lot of them are similar. So in this particular case, what we've done, I'm not going to go into what pentode or triode is, but essentially we've chosen for a flat saturation frequency. In this one, really easy setting. Brought the saturation up quite high. So just going to turn this off and on and show you the saturators actually bring out a lot of harmonics into, and they fill up a lot of good harmonic space, especially with bass lines. So I'll just play it on and off just now, and we'll just see that. So you can instantly see there's a lot of thickness added to that bass line. And even if I brought up the volume like I did last time, it just wouldn't do the same job. Saturators are really, really good at that. If you really want to get this one, I would recommend it. It is very powerful. So definitely first one off, use a saturator in your chain, and then move on to your EQs. So in this particular case, we've got kind of like a little EQ there just to clean up all the sub frequencies. So after the saturator, you kind of then use that to clean up all the sub frequencies. Of course, you want to clean those up below 100. This is 124 dB roll off at 12 dB. That's just a nice roll off to avoid phasing issues. We can go into that more in a different tutorial, but yeah, anything just around there, you don't even have to. So a lot of people like to do this staple 200 plus kind of cut. That's not really needed. All we're trying to do is clean up this bottom end so the kick can really come through. Because remember, the kick and the sub will sit, from 80 to 50 hertz. So not really going to be, this is really just to clean it up. And then we can do a bit more of a surgical EQ or a little bit more on the next one. So just like to clean that up with the Fab filter. And what we did after that in this particular track, now each track is different. So you will be doing different approaches, but this is how this particular track is done. We're going to go through the EQ here. And then this one, we can see the low cut again is at 125. But what we're looking for in here, we've kind of got like a boost here in the 495 kilohertz. Now, one thing I always say about bass lines, and if you haven't listened to our other tutorials, you kind of want this shape. So I wonder if there's a freeze mode here. Sorry, I'm just trying to look for a freeze. Can't actually remember. All right, so as you can see in this particular bass line, what you kind of want is this kind of curve. You don't want this bass line moving up like that. You kind of want this thickness here, and then you want it to kind of roll down. So you can see in this particular example there, it's thick and it kind of rolls down. You want, this is the main area for the bass line there. You know, between your 100 to like 800 mark, you want that sort of roll off there. In this particular case, we've just sort of extenuated the highs because we felt like you just couldn't hear them. The high end is where you get that movement from the bass line, so you just want to boost that a little bit in this particular case. As you can see, without that EQ, it sounds a bit flat. You can't really hear there's a nice low end now because of the saturation, but to really balance that out again and give that nice top end, just bring that out again. And again, you know, just gives that a little bit more clarity. Now, in this particular instance, we've used an interesting plugin here called Track Spacer. Track Spacer is almost like a LFO tool in this particular case, but what it does is just a little bit, just adds a little bit of space into the sound. I mean, essentially you're looking at certain cuts. It's basically just an EQ of some kind, but you can download this if you really feel like sometimes you just want to make a little bit of space. Let's say you got like a section coming up with melodies or leads, or you feel like it's a little bit too busy, just you can use the track spacer there to just clean it off, and it'll give it like nice little cuts and EQs. But again, you can just leave it off and just, you know, use the classic. This is basically like if I was to use a sidechain, but then sidechain it to, let's say, a lead, and every time the lead hits, then the track drops. That's what kind of track spacer does, but just more on a overall level, because you can really target the frequency that you want on the track spacer. So I can say something like high cut goes there. I've actually left it open in this particular case. Just cleans it up a little bit. Yeah, sorry. We've actually added that to the acid bus. So when the acids hit, get a little bit more space for the acids. And that's where that difference is. I apologize. So as you can see, it's sidechained to the acid bus. So when the acids play, the bass line just ducks a little bit. You can use any sort of sidechaining tool for that, but track space is quite nice. Now, after that, simple sidechain. Don't need to really go into it, just to move it out of the way of the kick. And then finally, we finish it off with a mid-bass delay. So that just gives it that movement. So if we play that. So remember, you can build your bass line statically, and then you can use your delay to then add movement to it. Now, in this particular case, we've added the mid-bass delay to the top end. Now with the low end, we didn't want to have delay on that, so that's why we've actually put it out separately in this particular track. Don't actually do that a lot, but in this particular case, we just thought it was best. And then we've obviously just done the saturator on this, which is the Ableton saturator. This drive knob, for example, is really, really good on that. And yeah, same thing. You know, saturator, EQ, LFO tool, and then we've used the utility to make the bass mono because this is the low end layer. So if I play that, cut off the high end for that one. Kept the low end. Now you don't want to put delay on that. That's why. So yeah, as you can see, that's kind of how we process things. Now that's how you kind of bring out warmth. Now with the low end, very, very important, this thick layer. We'll talk about a little bit more about sound selection and how to kind of get this out at a later point. But yeah, just keep this. As you can see, the saturator there does really, really good work. So make sure that you use that as well on your bass lines. As you can see, it brings out the thickness really, really well. All right, guys, thanks for your time. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.